This episode is brought to you by Buzzshot, Cogs by Clockwork Dog, and our wonderful Patreon supporters. Welcome to the Reality Escape Pod, your lifeline when you need a getaway from the real world. I'm PG Law, and I'm one of the co-hosts here on the podcast. When you join our Patreon, besides supporting our work here at Reality Escape Pod, you also get access to our Bonus Aftershow.
The Bonus Show.
This is another full-length podcast where we continue the conversation with our guests. I get to ask some burning questions that we didn't have time for in the main interview, or it might end up being an impromptu discussion about best business practices for escape rooms. Sometimes it's just trading old battle stories about escape rooms of yore. I've picked out some of my favorite moments from the Season 9 Bonus Aftershows. If you like this content and would like to hear more from our library of over 100 episodes, consider joining our Patreon at patreon.com/roomescapeartist. Your support means so much to us, and it really helps us continue our mission of elevating the escape room industry. In episode 1, we talked to James Douberly, captain of Death and Mayhem, which wrote this year's MIT Mystery Hunt. They love to troll their players, and here, James tells us about one such puzzle called the Infinite Scavenger Hunt.
There's another in-person activity that we did get a chance to talk about that I was so tickled by. In fact, I suspect that I went more over the top with it than anyone else might have, which was the Infinite Scavenger Hunt. James, can you explain this one? Because I was tickled by it.
Yes. So for a little bit of background, there is something called the Infinite Corridor on MIT's campus. It is one long hallway that stretches through most of the main group buildings, and it has a very special place in MIT culture. Late in the year, we had a conversation about trying to up the number of trolley events. So in October, we started telling people this is going to be a very in-person event. You really should come in person. And we had already designed all of these physical puzzles and interactive experiences in the gala, but I was growing worried that we were over-promising. And so I hit up some people that I know like doing runarounds and interactive things and said, hey, can we try to do a couple more? Can we try to get some really weird trolley stuff in there? And Kevin Wang said, yes, absolutely. Here's my idea. The Infinite Scavenger Hunt, you were told to report to a specific location, which was the end of the Infinite Corridor, for judging of your scavenger hunt. Historically, scavenger hunts have given you the list of things in advance and then you request judging, and usually it's in your team HQ, but we just said, go to this place and request judging, and they were given a list of tasks to do.
And bring a lot of people.
Oh, and bring a lot of people, yes, which I don't think we told the first teams that got there, but we did start telling everyone, you are going to need some more people for this. So they showed up, they were told to bring a bunch of people, they were given a bunch of tasks, and it said, do X in Y location. So juggle something in front of this particular plinth. The set was on a laminated sheet. They were shown the sheet. It said, you have an infinite amount of time. Your time starts now. And then the judge would start walking away and walking down the infinite corridor.
At a leisurely pace.
At a very leisurely pace. We specifically timed it to be about 7 or 8 minutes because the conceit was infinite was capitalized everywhere it was written. So when we said you had an infinite amount of time, what we meant was you had one infinite corridor worth of time to complete these tasks. And one by one, every team discovered that as our judge reached the end of the infinite corridor, took a selfie of themselves and said, your infinite amount of time has elapsed. Try again. So that was the big joke. Usually when teams came back, they had prepared themselves very thoroughly for a second run because we allowed these tasks to be photos for the most part. Any tasks that weren't on the first floor, you could do as a photo of yourself doing X item in Y location. Teams would come back and they would have already prepared a bunch of photos of themselves doing those tasks, and then they would discover we reordered them. And this was critical to the puzzle. It was really, really important that teams did it exactly at least 2 times because they needed to see that we had reordered the list and that there was no canonical X to Y mapping given. And so then they would have to do it again. Oftentimes they failed on the second run through.
To be clear, what this meant was the tasks all stayed the same and the locations all stayed the same, but the task and location pairings mixed up. So this thing you might be doing in a room in the basement could be up on the 4th floor somewhere, or could be on that main level. And so you had to be prepared to do that.
That's a lot of running around.
Well, so my team went through this Saturday evening. My brain was pretty well cooked, and I wasn't really going to be puzzling much anymore, but I can organize some mayhem. And so after we failed the first time, I took a small group of people from my team and as much of the equipment as we could gather, which was basically all of it. And we went through the entire basement and shot a photo or video of every single task at 4 or 5 of the locations, so that when we went up there, I could just start pulling them up on my phone. And then we had another person coordinating any gaps that we might have had. But we had half the tasks already in the bag. And so basically combining that with my ability to just conversationally slow people down, our infinite time inspector didn't make it 10 feet of walking into this before we had shown them every photo of everything that they needed. And then it was just a leisurely walk down where they saw all of the in-person things going on. We did it so quickly with the upper floor stuff that they had assumed that I had photos of every single thing from every single location, which I didn't. But yeah.
That would have been a really good way to do that.
I would have, but we ran out of time.
That's fair. People love being goofy and silly at things like this. We expected shenanigans. We were hoping for shenanigans. We were looking for teams to record stuff in advance to try to slow our judge down. The reorderable list was just sticky tack. So we handed teams that list each time to say, here you go, here's your list. Take a photo of it if you want. We expected at least one team would just reorder it themselves to a set that they were happiest with. And we were going to be totally okay with that. And we're really glad that you guys got to do some shenanigans.
I was so happy because I was very much done with puzzling at that point. I suspect that the group of people who came along with me on this fool's errand, I think everyone was kind of like looking for a break and looking for an opportunity to go do some silly stuff. And so, yeah, we took all these photos, we renamed them, we put them into Google Drive folders. They're all hyper organized so they could be easily pulled up.
That's amazing. Yeah. I'm so happy with all of the different ways that people interacted with that one.
In episode 2, Neil Patrick Harris joined us to talk about his new game, Box 2. Neil is a magician and a huge supporter of not only the escape room industry, but the magic industry as well. He comes on the Bonus Aftershow, and we discuss the similarities between magic and escape rooms. Now, as I play more escape rooms, I'm trying to retain as much magic in my life as possible. So like when I play an escape room, one of my pet peeves now is kind of when the teammates will be like, oh, I bet this is going to open. This is probably, a doorway to, and I'm like, I don't want to know. Like give me, let me preserve the magic of this experience, don't ruin that moment.
I won't do that in a real life room in the same way, but especially with a tabletop game, especially when I know that the feedback that I give will be acted on, I will kick the tires harder, partially because I want to help out, and partially because, and this is a thing that's unique to me, if I don't cover this stuff, or if I don't find the problems and suggest fixes, I will hear about it in review comments and emails and on social media for years.
I mean, I totally get it. and look, and this is my idiosyncrasy because I know that for a lot of players, they get a pleasure out of spotting the seams. That's what does it for them. And I totally get it. And for me, it's like, I want the magic of the surprise, right?
Yeah, and David, you're the outlier, right? Because we're friends, and I had sent you the game, and so I think you were doing that also intentionally. But PG, I love the way that you are now playing the escape games because I'm similar, and I think in Magic speak, there's kind of two different schools of audience member. It's people who feel fooled and tricked and they need to know how it's done, and they're kind of mad that the magician has one over on them, and they
got one over on them. Yeah.
Yeah, how'd you do that? Oh, I know, I have to know it. Like, they have to solve it. And then there's other people who just want to go and see people do magic tricks, and they don't want to, they just love the magic. They know that something's happening, that there's trickery, that girl's being levitated, but they don't need to process it that way. And it sort of sounds like, I do the same thing in escape rooms. I'm like, I just want to have the good time.
Yeah, I'm a great magic audience member. I scream every time.
Nice.
With a lot of this stuff, my feeling is always like, I don't need to like know how it worked, especially with magic. I just don't need to know how it worked. With escape room tech and like, there are times where I'm just sort of like, all right, professionally, I kind of need to know. Personally, like, I'm fine with like, but I also have like kind of gotten good at being in the moment, just letting the magic be the magic, and then afterwards, I'm like, okay, I have had my experience. I have those memories, Command S. And now let's find out what was underneath the hood, because I'm pretty sure I know how you did that, but I'm not 100% sure. And if there's a new technique out there, I would like to know.
Well, and in magic, it's so wild how the magic conversation and the escape room conversation are so similar.
So, funny thing. I'll give people a little spoiler about what I'm working on. Is Lisa and I, our talk at this year's Recon is going to be what escape room creators should learn from magic.
Oh, wow. That's a great idea.
We're talking to a whole bunch of other magicians who also know the escape room space, and
of course, Harrison.
Yeah,
you get a lot from him. But what is useful in magic, especially like mentalism and things, if you have a 2-person mentalist act where, say, the assistant's on stage and she's blindfolded and she sits, and then the magician goes out into the audience, right, and says, I'm holding something in my hand, and then the assistant can, as a clairvoyant, can sort of know what it is. There's multiple ways that is accomplished. There's not a singular way it's accomplished, and that's been used since the turn of the century. But the most effective teams that do that use a myriad of ways. They'll use super high tech and then super low tech. And so just when you think, oh no, it's how he's cueing her with what word he's using, and the word must start with a letter, and he's cueing her that way, then they'll switch to a different technique. And then you're really confused. And so my favorite magicians are the ones who use it all, so that you're never able to know why. And I think in the same way, my favorite escape rooms aren't ones where they're priding themselves on the fact that it's all automated. We didn't push a single thing. Once you went in, as soon as you put the magnet thing on the thing, then it unlocks the thing, and here's the tech. And it's good, but it's also user involvement and like old school pulling a cord. And so you're like, it's everything. Then I think you're at kind of the next level.
I agree with you. I think it's sort of every tool in the toolkit. And like when I've talked to magicians, the thing that I find, the ethos that all of my favorite magicians have, is that they start with the effect that they want to have and then figure out a method that can get them there, rather than saying, well, I have a method.
Eric Springenvelt of Mama Bazooka created the Dome, one of the top-rated escape rooms in the world. In the bonus show, we talk about story feeling versus storytelling. Eric also talks to us about how his background as a musician has influenced his escape room design philosophy.
Dark Park Games and the Dome, very specifically, do this thing that I keep thinking about in terms of what are your options for storytelling in escape rooms. I call it story feeling instead of storytelling, where I think a lot of escape rooms that do a successful job of storytelling, they're very much kind of performing a show in front of you. They're performing a play. There are puzzles and game elements that, mixed in, but they're very much showing you a story. Whereas I think that the Dome, the story of the game for most players is, I was given hallucinogens and put inside of a science experiment, and I hallucinated. I don't even fully know what happened. I just know that I was hallucinating for an hour without drugs. And I think that that's a story. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. I was told I was being given hallucinogens. I hallucinated, and then I stopped. that is on its own just a story. For, a lot of people, that's just Friday night.
Yeah. For a lot of people.
So there is a simplicity of storytelling in the Dome. There's nothing simple about the Dome, but there is a simplicity of storytelling from the experience perspective. I know that there is a lot of intent behind what is happening, and I know that there is a story that you can infer and intuit, especially if you watch the trailer. There's more depth to it. But if you strip all of that back and you assume that players don't understand anything else you said, which is what happens in a lot of story-based escape rooms anyway, is that there's just a certain portion of people who, no matter how explicit and clear your story is, they will reach the end and only remember that they solved puzzles. I do appreciate that when you strip it down, there is that very basic but very clear story.
For me as well, I really enjoy that. I have a very low concentration span, and I would really like to have that to be very clear. So what's going on, and not too big of a story where I have to follow some kind of deeper layers in a story. It's fun if it's there, but if I miss it, it's not a necessity for me to not enjoy it, and that's of course because I know there are some gamers and enthusiasts that really love a good story with a lot of angles, but I could not create something like that because that's not how my brain works. Mm-hmm. Because I don't enjoy that either. So I have to create something that I would enjoy myself.
I love a good complex story, but I don't always love it when it's crammed into a 1-hour experience and there's a lot of other things going on. And especially when there's you have to do a lot of reading to find out the story, right? We talked about this before, one person's reading the story while other people are doing fun stuff. And I've kind of come around on that because now if I want a really interesting mystery or story, I'll play a Jubensha or some other game where these are 6-hour experiences. And so then, yes, give me the complex story and I'll take a lot of time deciphering and untangling the threads of this story. But I have kind of come around to a more simple story for an escape room is better, especially when you have this much spectacle involved in it.
I totally agree.
So I'm always curious how people's, backgrounds have influenced them as an escape room designer. How do you think your background as a musician has influenced your design work with escape rooms? I guess I was wondering if there's any similarity between the flow of what makes for a good song and the flow of what makes for a good game.
Yes, I approach it like a music piece that has a certain tension somewhere and it comes down again, and that it has a certain beat or rhythm. The music is very important for me as well to get people in a certain, sometimes melancholic vibe as well, or tensed. So music has a lot to do with it, but also the elements where we work with jump scares. Sometimes there's a certain point where it actually works in a game. And that's a very important how to place it, where in between certain puzzles, and what is the puzzle then, and what's the tension when they're creating those puzzles, and what's then the right moment. And that's sometimes a matter of seconds where it works more, and that's why we tweak as well, so that it's not only the sound and the moment, but also the moment just in between. That it's not just a jump scare because a jump scare, but also just to get a little bit further under your skin because it's timed well. So when you listen to a classical music piece, right, then it also has a certain build-up, right? It starts very slow, and then it can sometimes surprises happen, with the drums very loud, and then they just go down, and then the violins. And so that's more or less what I also like when playing a game. I like to approach it like that, to feel that I'm excited all the time. And I think David mentioned it. You can put a lot of sound all the time, but after you get numb after a while, or you cannot feel certain things anymore because your senses are overstimulated or it doesn't work anymore. So
you have to build up the tension and then release the tension.
Yeah, exactly. And let also players just to be a little bit in certain atmosphere. There's a lot of room in 1 hour to play with this. But of course, it's important, what I believe in, is that there has to be a certain build-up and a crescendo as well till the end. That's always what you try, because if you give that all away in the beginning, It doesn't have this ultimate climax.
What do you get when you cross puzzles, pals, and trivia? It's PG's Playhouse, our new show where we play games and explore interesting topics. If you love wordplay and learning about new things, check out PG's Playhouse, available now wherever you get your podcasts. John Seal and Ryan Patch run the Great Gotham Challenge, a massive citywide puzzle adventure that sends its players scrambling all throughout New York City. They describe it as part puzzle hunt, part amazing race, and part immersive theater. On the bonus show, they tell us a little bit more about some of the riskier elements they've created for the Great Gotham Challenge. So I had one burning question from the main episode that I didn't ask. Everybody kept talking about risky endeavors.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we're not going to make the corporate guys do the risky things.
Right.
We're going to save that for the main hunt. Or like, that one was pretty risky. I don't know. And I was like, what does that mean? What's a risky endeavor when it comes to a puzzle hunt?
It could be both risk on the player's end as well as the clue master's end, because John and I are there when we do, and we take the lead when we're doing these big things for the public, but our corporate things have to be runnable by people that are not us. And so a good example of something that like is risky is that we did a perspective puzzle once where you had to stand in a very specific place in the high line, and then you raised up a transparency with markings on it in a very specific place. And when you did that,
The High Line, for those who are unfamiliar, is a very unusual and really cool park in New York City. It used to be an above ground, an elevated rail line, like a freight rail line. And now it has been converted into a walking park. And so you take stairs up to the park, and it just kind of spans over the streets and over the city. It's like 2 stories up. It's not like, you're not like walking up 40 feet, but it's a beautiful park and it's really well managed.
yeah, and so it was this really cool thing where if you just were in the right position, this transparency lined up with these markings on the street to give you, and this is kind of the reveal that we're talking about in that original thing. You actually passed these markings on the street earlier when you're going to a different puzzle, but if you're in just the right position and you have just the right secret knowledge, you can get this to align, and it creates meaning out of gibberish. And as a part of prepping for this, we had to spray chalk the street, which looks a lot like spray paint. And so we don't want to expose our other clue masters to the risk of being, stopped by a police officer being like, excuse me, sir, what do you think you're doing? So that's one type of risk. Another type of risk might be doing an activation in a space that we don't exactly have a permit for. Now, we're not doing anything illegal, but are we hosting a gathering without a permit? We wouldn't do that for a private challenge, but for a public challenge, those might be the types of risks that we'd take.
On the player side, though, I can give you some examples. These are things from our recent, so the 2024 public game that we did. One of the first parts of the experience was that people encountered a puzzle that was sort of inspired by the New York Times Connection puzzle, if you're familiar with that. So on Connections, you have a series of squares that you're trying to swap around to find sets of 4 in a digital space. We did a physical version of that where people, instead of solving that on a computer, they had to collect the tiles with words on them in order to match and make the sets of 4. But the way that they had to collect those tiles was by making in-person connections with our agents in a train station. So we had, I think, 8 to 12 actors who were all playing real commuters in a train station, and you had kind of an opaque clue to figure out each person. So an example might have been like a young person who is more interested in The Cure and Misfits than Taylor Swift. So from that, you had to determine which person in this train station is the most likely to fit this description. And in our case, it was like a teenager who was dressed in this goth attire.
Excuse me, do you hate Taylor Swift? She's just going up to every goth teenager, which I imagine there were not just a few of those riding the New York City subway trains.
Yeah, I don't think ours was the only one at every time. So you had 10 or so of those clues,
and your directive was to introduce yourself and offer a handshake to the people who you thought it was, and that's the way that you unlock the clue delivery from our actor. So imagine, to some people that might feel very transgressive to have to make these interactions with people who might not be a part of the game and risk embarrassing yourself. Another example is that we had directed people to find a clue on a street without much going on and made kind of an opaque reference to it involving a delivery or a box. People arrived at that street to find several different things that could have been a match to that description, but the one that we had set up for them was actually a box truck. So a 16-foot
cube truck,
delivery truck filled from floor to ceiling with boxes. What you had to realize was one of the large boxes that formed the base of the stack of boxes was actually a tunnel. You open the flaps, crawl through, and enter inside the truck, and then when you're there, you receive a package for your team that has a clue inside. Depending on who you are, you might consider crawling into a random box truck through a box risky. I wouldn't say that those are like the riskiest things that we've done, but that's kind of where we've landed as far as risk tolerance these days about what we feel like is appropriate to ask people to do. The transgressive element is a part of what we like about the game, and we call it the dare. Many of our interactions involve some sort of dare that we're indirectly daring our participants to do in order to complete the interaction and solve the challenge.
Gara Rhoda and Moritz Marti own the acclaimed Mystic escape rooms in Brooklyn, New York, and their games have won 2 Golden Lock Awards. In the main episode, they talked to us about their struggles with the local fire and building inspectors while building out their location. On the bonus show, David took this opportunity to spread awareness about the Poland escape room fire that spurred fire marshals to tighten escape room regulations.
The other thing that I promised we would talk about was the Poland fire, because I've come to realize that this is forgotten history. Over the last couple of months, I've been randomly asking escape room friends, especially people who started since the pandemic.
Yeah, I'd never heard of it before I heard about it from David.
I've been asking around because by the time this episode comes out, I probably will have already started a little bit of a crusade against the use of open flames in Greek escape rooms. But I really want to make sure people know about this because it was a tragedy. The story is dark. The content warning here is that we're about to talk about 5 teenage girls dying under awful circumstances. The basic story here is that on January 4th, 2019, there was a fire in an escape room in a small town in Poland. I am not going to pronounce the name of the town. I don't know how to pronounce these Polish names, and I'm just going to make an ass of myself if I try to. But the important thing to know is that this was a company that no one ever would have heard of outside of probably the community that it was in if they hadn't had this fire. This was not an impressive escape room company. This was not an important escape room company. This is not something that tourists went to. So there was a space heater in the space, a natural gas space heater that had appeared to be leaking. And I could confirm that it had been leaking from New York on my own because when I looked up the Google reviews and the TripAdvisor reviews of this company, the reviews in the weeks leading up to, people were complaining that the space smelled of gas. So it was something that was...
It was an ongoing problem.
Right. So yeah, gas-powered space heater, leaky valve, and eventually a fire started. And there were 5 15-year-old girls celebrating one of their birthdays in a game. This is a very old school game. The thing that you had to do to escape, you were basically looking for the doorknob to get out. So there was no fire exit. There was no emergency release. There was no way out. My guess is that it may have been possible if they were adults or they had a better understanding of how doors work. They may have been able to hack their way out. But these girls were very much trapped. All of them died of smoke inhalation. And there was a 26-year-old game master who was seriously injured attempting to free them. As best as I can understand it, it sounds like the fire happened in between the game door and the game master's booth. And so they tried to actually save these girls and got injured in the process and then failed to get them out.
So the fire itself wasn't in the game.
It was in the lobby somewhere where the
see.
space heater was.
I see it. But they were trapped. So it was the smoke inhalation because he couldn't get to the door to let them out.
It was smoke inhalation. The other thing, what I don't think people often appreciate enough about fires because of the way it's portrayed in TV and movies, is you'll see the person like throw their t-shirt in front of their face and run into the fire. The thing that often kills you in a house or a commercial fire is whatever was burning in the smoke. It will knock you unconscious. Sometimes whatever is off-gassing will just kill you. And sometimes it will render you unconscious, and then eventually you'll asphyxiate or burn. So that's the way most people die in fires. It's not like you get lit on fire and then die. That you can die from that. That is a way you can die. But often it's whatever the gases are or the heat itself will render you unconscious, and then you will die. That's how it normally goes. And so they didn't have much of a chance here. In the aftermath of this, the owner, who was not the game master, the owner was arrested. The owner was charged with some form of, I don't know, again, don't know the Polish legal system very well. It was some form of manslaughter or murder or accidental, but served time in prison. Life was very much ruined from this. 5 families lost their kids, and this game master was injured. And that was the starting point of this. The other factors, because of the nature of who the victims were, this was an international news story. It was also an election year in Poland. The fact that this was an international embarrassment to a level of national importance. Escape rooms were immediately inspected by local fire marshals. There were no standards that they could be held to. And so everyone was just at the whim of whatever a fire marshal wanted. Talking to people who know what was up in Poland, it was a very large percentage, like somewhere between 50 and 70% of games were closed, many of them permanently. Talking to people who knew the community there, it sounded like it was very haphazard who was closed and who was not, because these fire marshals didn't know what they were looking at. And so they were going on vibes. So some of the companies that were closed probably shouldn't have. Some of the ones that were allowed to be kept open probably should have been closed. It was, in short, a cluster. But the other thing that is not often understood when it comes to fire code is that the fire code writing community is an international community, and it is a small community, and it pays very close attention to tragedies involving fire. And so many other cities, and then also code writers at the national and international levels, to start addressing escape rooms more directly. So companies, particularly in, from what I've heard, Berlin, New York City, and Boston, had especially difficult times.
Why those cities in particular?
Because that was where the fire departments saw this had happened and decided they don't want a black eye by letting this happen. This is one of the things with fire in particular, is that your fire departments, once they know a threat exists, if they do not take action against it, they will look bad if there was an established threat and they did not do anything to go and mitigate it in advance, particularly in dense cities. And in New York and in Boston, in the US in particular, but many other small towns. Those are just the big examples. There were many towns and cities all over the US where there were big crackdowns, and some of those were sensible and some of them were not, and some of them asked for reasonable things but then trapped owners in bureaucratic hell. And it was complicated on a very profound level, and the victims of that fire are numerous. Granted, the rest of the victims are economic victims, but they are victims of that negligence nonetheless.
Blood on the Clocktower is one of the most well-balanced social deduction hit-and-roll games on the market today. Creator Steven Medway hangs with us on the bonus show to talk about the design evolution of Blood on the Clocktower, and he also gives the definitive answer on whether the townsfolk, or Team Good, should be executing every day. Here we're really interested in those inflection points of when you knew that it was a good idea, but this one small change is what made it all suddenly slot together and work. What were some of those moments for you?
For real, even though the game was terrible in the beginning, it was still really good. It was both. It didn't work, but the players were having so much fun that I knew that it was a winner because I had a game that was broken, that was hard to set up, that didn't quite work, but the players kept coming back and kept wanting more. The major points where things started to take off was getting the level of information right. Not so much information that the evil team were helpless, but not so little information that all you had was body language.
That's one of the things that really interests me about Clocktower is that there is so much information out there for the good team, but you have also managed to balance that with allowing the bad team the ability to sow disinformation and to like either poison or make people drunk. Did those always exist from the beginning, or is that what you brought in to balance it?
Yeah. Poisoner and Drunk were one of the first two characters ever made. Misinformation was really crucial for two reasons. First of all, just to balance information. When a team of people are highly motivated to work together to achieve an outcome, and there's a high level of trust, it's almost impossible to fight against. So if you've got a game of 10 players and you've got 7 good players that are all just working together, that's a very steep hill to climb for evil. That's a very tough fight. So misinformation was first of all introduced just because I knew there would need to be some kind of balance. But second of all, it provides plausible deniability for the evil players. One of the things that I wanted in Clocktower was I wanted the evil players to be able to say anything and for it to be plausible. Maybe you're not believed, but at least you can't be proven to be wrong. There's never a good player that is saying, I know for a fact that you're lying. It is 100% confirmed by the rules of the game that you are lying to me. That's not a very pleasant experience. Misinformation, like getting information as a good player but not knowing that your information is false, was the first way that I came up with to provide that plausible deniability so that an evil player can say, I'm the investigator and I learned that one of the two of you is the Scarlet Woman. And then someone says, oh no, that's not true. Oh, maybe I'm drunk or poisoned. Maybe you're drunk or poisoned. We don't know. Let's figure it out together. I wanted that to be the reaction as opposed to, you just have to believe me. And if you don't believe me, it means you're evil. That's a very different conversation.
That makes sense. Because you have seen so many of these games play out. Do you have an opinion that you're willing to share on whether you feel it makes sense for the townsfolk to execute someone on day one or not? Because I can make a case in either direction, but I've never been sure, and I always feel bad about it.
I recommend that the good team execute every single day. Yeah. Even I wish this wasn't true. If the good team is executing every single day, they have, compared to executing every second day, they're almost twice as likely to win the game. The only way that the good team can win, usually, is by executing the demon. The more you execute, the more chance that you'll just accidentally get the demon. Yeah, I recommend that the good team execute every single day.
All right. You heard it here, folks.
In Trouble Brewing, with the Undertaker in play, absolutely you should be executing every single day because the Undertaker's not going to reveal who they are. And it is 100% worth killing a good player for the Undertaker to confirm who they are. If you've got a fortune teller getting great information and you're the Undertaker, you should be giving discount coffins, kill 2 family members, get the third one free, Super Sunday discounts. If you're an Undertaker or know that there's an Undertaker in the game, absolutely be killing every day because information is just so much more useful. Information is more or less the currency of the game. It's for the good team. It's just so much more useful than staying alive.
It's also a currency for the bad team. It's just that it works differently.
Yeah. Things are more complicated for Team Evil. Misinformation's a big one, but the evil team needs to get the game to the final day with as many evil players alive as possible, but with as much misinformation being spread throughout the group as possible, which may necessitate evil players dying. So it's an interesting choice.
I'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors, Buzzshot and Cogs by Clockwork Dog.
Buzzshot is escape room software powering business growth, player marketing, and improving the customer experience. They offer an assortment of pre- and post-game features, including robust waiver management, branded team photos, and streamlined review management.
Streamline your marketing and grow your escape room business. REPOD listeners get an extended free trial and 20% off your first 3 months with no setup fees or hidden charges. Visit buzzshot.com/repod. That's REPOD to learn more. We'd also like to thank sponsor Cogs. Are you looking to up your game when it comes to creating a more theatrical experience for your escape room or immersive show? Cogs by Clockwork Dog is a software-hardware platform that makes it easy to create a show with lighting and sound cues, whether you're totally new to escape room tech or a seasoned engineer.
Get the COG starter set for only $130 plus free shipping to the USA. This bundle is usually valued at $257. You can learn more and purchase your starter set at cogs.show. Use code REPOD at checkout. That's REPOD. And thank you so much to Cogs by Clockwork Dog.
Supporting our sponsors supports this podcast. Link and details in the show notes. Escape in the Bay Area has a huge selection of fantastic escape rooms. They have an interesting business model where many of their games are franchised from China, but they will heavily modify the game and set design. Sarah Zhang joins the bonus show to talk about the business aspects of franchising escape rooms. A lot of the games you carry are licensed games or you purchase them. And I was really curious about that whole process. The first thing I'm curious about is what is it about a particular game that makes you want to purchase it or license it? What is that special something that you're like, this is the game that I want to spend money on to bring it back and install in my own escape room?
I think it's more about like the gameplay, or as David put out, like the foundation, the framework. It's mainly that. It's like, if like they have bad set, bad prop, that's easy to change. But like the gameplay itself, is it fun? Or does it have enough good moments that we remembered? I think those are like the two things we mainly focus on. I mean, there's some really good games. We played it. It's like, wow, I mean, this game is already pretty solid. It's a good game, but we don't see it's like fitting our store. Or it's like, yeah, it's a good game, but there's not enough memorable moments or uniqueness to it. Yeah, so I would say probably the gameplay or enough fun moments.
What makes for a fun moment for you?
It's something like something you've never seen before, or something that we had fun when playing the game, or like something unique about this particular game. It's kind of when we played that Robotopia game in China, and we were like, oh, first, the setting is interesting. We've never seen that. And then we're like, okay, there are a few moments. We had fun with 3 people. There's like a required teamwork. Okay, good. But for that game, it's mainly the set. This is interesting. I like all the small robots.
So then what's the process after that? You've gone and played this game. You're like, I love it. It's really fun. I really want this game for my location. And then what do? Do you go to rooms that you know are open to licensing their games? Or do you just play any game and then you'll approach the owner and ask if they're open to it?
Oh, to just approach the owner and ask them about it. Well, based on our experience, because most of the game we license, a lot of them are from China. And I guess this is a pretty mature, like a usual business thing. You license game. And I really envy them that they can license a game. You can find a manufacturer specialized in building escape rooms to build your game. And you just need to like design the game and give it to them. But anyways, everyone there is pretty used to it. They even have like they have the standard contract, and just put on your information, talk about the price, and okay, there you go. And then a bunch of digital stuff. Here you go. Have fun.
Oh, because that doesn't seem to be the case here in the US, is it, David?
No, I would say that most escape room games in the US, if you were to go up to the owner and say, I want to license this, they might make you a deal, but they probably will have to put some work into figuring out how to document it and turn over the assets.
That's kind of what happened with Undercooked. And I mean, the negotiation took a long time. And I know you can tell from the document they send. It's like, oh, I see. This is just your internal document. I can see your different versions of puzzles there. But that's totally fine. We know what we're trying to get from this game. We know how to build it, but we want to keep the app there, which we don't know how to make. The gameplay we like. And the puzzles is most of them already know how to build, but we want to keep it. So that's why we're licensing it.
So that was a game that was originally in Los Angeles, right?
Yes. I was surprised it wasn't a popular game. It was wow, this was so much fun. I mean, given the fact we actually finished all the recipes we finished last one in the last 30 seconds. I think that definitely helps.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense because for a while I was still seeing that game listed in Morty or something like that. And I was like, wait a minute, is there another Undercooked here? But I think that one closed when you bought it and installed it in your location, right?
Right. Oh, a few years after that, I think.
And I believe that Confusion Escape has also licensed Undercooked and made their own version of it.
I think so. Yeah. I just don't know how different it is.
I don't know either, but I imagine they've done their own thing with it just based off of their track record.
Yeah. I feel that's all the good escape games. I mean, they buy a game, but they won't stop with it. They're I don't like this. I'm going to make this better. I mean, it's the same. If we're going to remake our games, we're okay, cool. There's a long list of improvements we want to do and things we'll do differently.
Amanda Harris has played over 1,700 escape rooms. She and David both started playing in the early days when escape rooms first hit the scene. She joins us on the bonus show to talk about escape room tropes and the infamous scent puzzle.
Amanda, you've given me and Lisa a handful of escape room-y gifts over the years, and they're always lovely, and they're all displayed proudly in our home. But I have one in my hand right now that I want to share with people. This is a little pack of custom Crayola crayons with a Room Escape Artist logo on it that Amanda and Drew made for us.
Cute.
Let me take them out and I'll go through the colors with you.
Oh, did they custom name each
color? We
had
such a good time with this. Yes.
Yes. So I was looking at this recently and it's just very apropos for the episode that we just recorded because some of these still make sense and some of them I don't think most escape room players will be able to relate to. And some of them are just inside jokes between us that I will have to explain. The first, the red is do not touch. That one holds up.
Oh, that one's good.
I think so.
The yellow, we have golden lock-in, which is how we used to have the branding for the Golden Lock Award before the Poland fire, and we realized that the pun was not worth the safety implications. This one is very much a inside joke. This is a deep shade of blue. And it is labeled air-conditioned Lisa. My lovely wife has some difficulties with the cold, medically. She gets very cold very quickly. And air-conditioned escape rooms are sometimes a bit of a nightmare for her. And she will turn blue.
The Ice Queen!
Yes.
Literal blue.
Yep. Her nickname is the Ice Queen. It is a lovingly pejorative nickname. And we have over here, so it's so good. This green is underpaid zombie.
Call back.
We have a purple here that is blacklight.
I knew that one was coming.
Good call.
And then we have an orange that is scent puzzle.
Oh my God.
I don't know about that one's aging. There are definitely more sensory puzzles that I've seen since that time, but I feel like there's more thought put into them. So that you're not this just smells red or orange.
The old school scent puzzle. I remember I did one with Tommy once that was strawberry, cherry, I was what?
I'm getting a headache just thinking about it.
Yes, but they all smell the same.
This is fruit.
If you want to absolutely launch me into the stratosphere, go and do a scent puzzle and put lemon and lime as separate scents in your game. I have seen it and it makes me angry.
Yes, as it should.
I mean, I don't mind scent puzzles that use actual herbs. The ones that are this is cinnamon and this is rosemary or...
Yeah. They're from different families.
Or theatrical scents that really smell like the right thing. Those things exist.
True.
One of my favorite scent puzzles was in a game that is not a good idea, but it was called Boxed Up. This is, again, on the subject of old school nonsense that would not be allowed now. This was an old Comnata Quest game in Brooklyn, New York. And it was a 2-player game. And the structure of it is that each player had their own coffin that they were locked in for the duration of the game. And so you had adjacent coffins and no fire exits. This was old school. But one of the puzzles in that game was that throughout the game, they were pumping a scent into the coffin. And part of it was eventually you had to find this phone and call out for help. And you had to identify where you were based off of a combination of a map that you had access to and the scent that you were smelling, which was like laundry detergent. I'll also give a quick tip for how to be more effective as a team at solving scent puzzles. I've been meaning to write a post about this, and I don't think I have. So one of the things with your nose, unlike your other senses, is that your nose can be overstimulated. There's a finite amount of things you can smell before the receptors in your nose are all plugged up and they can't smell anymore. They can't differentiate anymore. My method for doing this is I have my team attack a scent puzzle one person at a time. First person takes a stab at it, tries their very best to get everything as close to what they can, as close to correct as possible, pointing out to the next person what they think they got right and what they were less sure of. And the person who goes in next goes in and tries to confirm and tweak, and you just have a person one at a time go and attack the scent puzzle. Because the wrong way to do it, which is the common way to do it, is everyone just starts picking things up and doing smell this, and then everyone is smelling the same things, and you just end up having a committee debating whether it's lemon or lime.
No, that's a great point. I also wish sometimes rooms would have a reference scent. You know what I mean? So you could be like, this is definitely coconut, or because I've had like chocolate and vanilla and they both smell exactly the same to me.
Yeah, they smell like sweets.
I have a group of girlfriends that I play escape rooms with, but they are the type that are like, we just want to play one. We do not understand your marathon life. And we encountered a scent puzzle, which I guess was probably the first one they had found. And they had coffee in the room, kind of in a different container for the like clearing of your scents. And as we're working through the puzzle, they just kept getting hung up on it and being like, no, that can't be right. And late as I worked with them through this puzzle, realized they were trying to make coffee one of the scents, but it was not meant to be one of the scents that you put in a certain order or got a number from. And so they were just so hung up. I'm like, but this is coffee, and I'm sure this is coffee scented. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's a thing.
I'm surprised actually, because I feel like you see it a lot of times when you're buying perfumes.
Right.
When they sell perfumes, a lot of times, yeah, with all the samples, they have a little container of coffee for you to smell in between when you're sampling perfume. So I feel like that's something that I've seen in that context, so you kind of know what it's for. In episode 10, noted quantum physicist Paul Kwiat came on REPOD to talk about his physics-based escape room, Lab Escape. In the bonus show, David and I talk about games for learning and how to make education more fun.
It's a really interesting challenge when you are trying to approach creating an escape room that its primary goal is not fun and profit, which is what you're trying to do when you're building an escape room company. You're trying to make profit through players having fun. In this case, the primary goal is to educate your players, and the secondary goal is that they have fun. Ideally, as you're going through this, you're able to kind of weigh those equally, where you're able to say, we're going to educate you while you are having fun, or you're going to have fun while we are educating you.
I love that. You know, it's funny because whenever you think of an educational escape room, for some reason, I always think of an educational escape room for children. In my head, that's the target audience for anything that's like educational, but also fun, right? But like grown-ups want to have fun and learn at the same time. I want to do both. Honestly, I take my niece and nephew to all of those cool science museums. They have all these hands-on science demonstrations, right? Like you can run through a giant model of a heart, or you can walk inside the beehive and see how it looks. You know what I'm talking about. All of those science museums that have a lot of cool hands-on stuff. And they're always aimed for children. And of course, grown-ups can get in on the fun, but I can't elbow some 5-year-old aside because I want to try the science demonstration too. And so I think it's really great that his escape room is really aimed more towards adults because he's teaching advanced science, right? This isn't science for kids. This was above my head almost. But I think there should be more of that. Grown-ups want to learn also still.
I'm going to one-up you a little bit, PG, because what you just said about educational games is also, I think, what most people, especially outside of our community, think about games and fun in general, as in societally.
Escape rooms. Yeah.
Societally, games and fun are the domain of children, not of adults. And this is actually a thing that has changed pretty dramatically in the last 20 to 30 years. It's a recent change.
The multi-billion-dollar video gaming industry has really been doing a lot of the heavy work in that area.
It has certainly done some of the heavy work there, or some of the heavy lifting.
It's like before that, it was only acceptable if it was sports, which is a game, right?
Yep. Sports are the game that is acceptable for adults. And even then, it's still more about watching than participating. Adult life is filled with education. Most of it is terrible. Most of it is absolutely miserable. But there's so much that you have to learn and absorb, and we just have to go and work our way through Google, or, your company has put together some kind of training for you that is probably terrible. Those things are, they're very real. We do a lot of education as adults. It's just not fun, and frequently not well thought out.
It's a shame about games. I feel like so many people have a difficult time making friends as adults. And one of the best ways to do it is by having fun, by playing games. At least for me, that's what helps me with social lubrication, right? You don't have to go out and get drunk as lubrication. You could just go out and play some games and you kind of have a shared platform and some shared rules, but you can still interact, and there's rules to help your interaction. For somebody who doesn't know what to say, I think it's a great way to meet other people. Go to your local game night meetup.
I mean, you don't have to convince me on this. I'm a big fan of games and play for people of all ages.
We've reached 100 episodes of REPOD. To celebrate, David and I picked out moments that influenced the way we worked, changed our point of view, or gave us a new perspective on game and puzzle design. In the bonus show, we take a look back at our own production process and talk about all the ways in which we've been leveling up. We have come such a long way since episode 1. Listening back to some of those clips really made me realize how much we've leveled up just as a production.
Everything. The gear, our voices, our speaking ability, the way that we structure questions, the way we guide guests, all of that stuff is incredibly leveled up.
Some of those things took work. Some of them were instinctive. I would say even from the get-go, though, it's funny because even when we started, I do feel like there was a level of production value already, that a lot of people commented on because you care about the quality of your work. Because at the time, David, we were like, pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, we started out pretty good. What I don't think people could see was it was so hard for me to edit the show to make it as good as I wanted it to be.
Speaking of other people's work, it's just other people's work. David has handed over the editing to not only Steve, but me. I don't know if people know, Steve actually does a lot of the processing edits on the main episode, and then I do the majority of the edits on the bonus episodes and Spoilers Club. And David and I were having a conversation the other day where we were talking about that transition, and you were saying that you were having a little bit of a hard time letting go.
I mean, with both of you, Because you both have different editing proclivities than I would have had.
Break it down for me. What do you think is your editing style versus Steve's versus mine?
It's funny because it's harder for me to actually disentangle them, because at this point, I think Steve would allow for a little bit more crosstalk if I let him. That would be the one thing that I think he would do. Is I think there's a couple of things I'm very rigid on that he would probably just let fly if I wasn't like, no, that this is verboten.
I think I'm the same way. I'm okay with a little bit of crosstalk.
Yeah, my feeling is very much like I want everything that is being uttered by a person that is more than a laugh or a exhale, want that to have its own space where everybody can very cleanly understand what is being said. That's something that I really care a lot about, because I do know that a lot of folks have a hard time disentangling when there's a lot of different voices happening.
I think you like to have it feel more like a presentation, whereas I think I like to have it be more conversational. I don't think there's any good or bad to either. It's just the style.
Yeah, I like it to feel conversational, but I like to kind of explode out that conversation a little bit. Like real conversation that has multiple people involved, there's a lot more overlap, and I don't like that in a podcast environment. And so what happens is, what I do from an editing perspective is I will take all of those different things that may have been said over each other and explode them out a little bit. And I try to still make it feel natural, or sometimes I'll remove a little bit of background noise, or I do manipulate that stuff. Laughs get moved a little bit. It's all in the spirit of what was said, but everything is moved around a little bit more than I think the both of you would otherwise do. You also really like adding sound effects and music into your edits that I initially was a little bit like, this is not really my thing, but I've grown to really like it.
It's funny. It's one of those things where I feel like I have a natural talent for it.
You do.
I go through a lot of my life with some type of soundtrack in my head. Like when something funny happens, like I'll hear a soundbite or I'll hear music rolling in. And that's kind of just how I experience the world.
Sorry, that's so LA, PG.
I'm not even in the film industry.
I know. It's just so LA. Continue.
So I definitely take more liberties with the sound effects in PG's Playhouse and also in the Spoilers Club. And Spoilers Club just lends itself to that, because when we're talking about the game and we talk about soundscaping and making the scene come alive, I was like, well, gotta have sound effects. You gotta have music. And the music makes such a huge difference in setting the mood and the tone when you start talking about a story or you start describing the environment.
I really like the way you do it. Initially, I was kind of resistant to it because I was like, is this a distraction? Is this cheesy? Is this a lot more work than it's worth? And over the time that you've been doing it, I never vocalized that to you. I think this is actually the first time I've ever said that to you. And it's after I had come to a place of complete acceptance. But I think that was for me an example of like, hey, you know what? You've handed this off. This is no longer the thing that you are responsible for editing. This is now a thing PG is responsible for editing. And therefore, it is now a thing that she gets to express herself in. And my initial thought was like, I don't know how I feel about this. If people really don't like it, they'll say so. If it's a whole lot of work that you're not feeling is warranted, then you will stop doing it.
And I do think that you take the temperature in the Patreon. In the Discord, you'll hop in. And I think there was maybe a moment where we had asked patrons, like, what do you think about the music? Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Is it a distraction? Like, how do people feel about it? I recently had somebody tell me that they really liked how it's being done, in the Spoilers Club.
It's really good. You're very artistic in the implementation of it. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's work, but it actually is what makes it enjoyable for me. And you feel like you're really crafting something, right? As opposed to just, slicing and dicing, being a word butcher.
And for me, the joy that I get out of editing is I really like sculpting. I like to take this mess of words that someone said. One of the things I really like is when we have had a guest, especially someone who is either very scared or someone for whom English isn't their first language and they're struggling a little bit to express themselves. And I'm listening to a passage that is very jumbled. and not communicating that effectively, but there's an amazing message in it. Always look at that like it's this big hunk of granite, and it's my job to go and chisel out something beautiful from that. And that's something that I really enjoy. And like I said, everything is in the spirit of what the guest is saying and just trying to carve away whatever needs to go to make that message get honed. That is where I get my joy out of the editing process.
Lock Hill's horror escape room, Chapel and Catacombs, located in Athens, Greece, has been rated in the top 10 games in the world. Owner and creator Bill Dalitsikas came on the bonus show to talk to us about how he crafts his scares. You talked a lot about how you don't really like having a lot of jump scares or chasing people or grabbing people. So that leaves me with the question of, then what are you doing to scare people? What are some of your other methods then that you like to use for creating the horror or the scares?
Well, I like jump scares. I don't like manhandling I love jump scares, personally, because that's the only way that I might actually, jump for a bit if it's something that I'm not expecting. So I love them.
Like being startled.
Yeah. Which is, of course, it's very fun to me when I'm in that state. But we do have jump scares, depending on the game, sort of go and hide because he's coming or she's coming. He's very slow for different reasons. Perhaps he's very old and he can't run, so he's not exactly chasing you. He's coming after you, but in a very slow way. That's in Chapel and Catacombs, for example. One of the characters has that type of mechanic. Or it might be in Sanatorium, one of the main antagonists is a Silent Hill nurse. I don't know if you're familiar with the game. She's not exactly human. She doesn't function as a human. And she can stay very, very still for long periods of time. So she might be right next to you, like 10 centimeters away. As long as you are silent and without any lights or any way to attract her attention, she will just stay there.
She's like a T-Rex in Jurassic Park.
Yeah, that's really unique for me because it gives you attention. That's not jump scare. It's not actually chasing you. She's just...
Oh, the worst. Oh my God.
It's wonderful. It lands so well.
I mean, I still, despite me saying, oh, nothing scares me anymore, when I walk into an escape room where there's a cloth over a chair in the corner, I still have trouble going over and pulling it away or lifting it under, and you have to because you don't want it to just sit there covered in a cloth the whole time you're puzzling. You can see how just a small thing like that really works well for creating that tension.
Especially if the cloth is moving and you don't know, is it someone behind it, or is it just the air conditioning, or is it me moving? And also in the sanatorium we have a lot of fog, which is an integral part of the game, because the point is that even though you have a lot of flashlights, each player has his own light. It works against you when you are in an area with a lot of fog because you can't see anything.
Yeah, that's why you have fog lights on your car, because when you're driving, you can't turn on high beams since you just see a giant wall of white. That's why you're actually supposed to use lower lighting in fog to see better.
In the beginning, you feel safe because each one has a light which he can use. But after a while, you can understand that it works against you. And that makes it even more difficult, not just in a physical way because you can't see, but also in a psychological way. So that's why Sanatorium will either make you very, very scared, or you might not get scared at all because the mechanics of the actual ways that the room is trying to get you are very specific, that either work for you or not.
It's so cryptic. It's so cryptic.
I'm not trying to be cryptic, but...
I don't want you to ruin the mechanic because, again, as we've talked about, the expectation does so much in shaping a player's enjoyment of a game.
We want people to know the mechanic even before game to avoid
Oh, you
things
do?
that we mentioned before. Because if you don't know how the actors work and if you can't distinguish them, you end up with half the experience, because you end up not interacting with them in the way that you could, and that it would advance the game in a good way.
And this is what you were talking about in the main episode about how experienced players don't often pay attention to the rules and they lean on their past experience and assume that your game will play like most of the other games they've ever played.
Yeah, in a way that sometimes it's frustrating, because they end up like mixing the characters, where we have a woman with heels and a mask with huge tentacles and clearly a dress, and you have a maniac where he's wearing a straitjacket, and you can't mix them up. Like they're two very separate people, and they end up thinking it's the same actor, and they end up mixing the mechanics or making it uncomfortable in the way that the game actually runs.
How do you onboard the players to how the mechanics work? Do you explain the rules before the game starts? How do players learn about it?
During the first room that they enter, which is the outside, the yard of the sanatorium, they have a bit of time to adjust themselves to the setting, and also they find something related to the story, to the actual story of all our rooms, basically. And it gives them basic instructions on what to do and what they will find and how they can proceed with that. Like very detailed rules. And like most of the teams will often, especially experienced teams, will just put it aside, never use it again. Yeah, we know what we do. You don't have to tell us. And of course they end up missing a lot of things. And we have to remind them during the game with various ways that, you have to pay attention to the creatures there and figure out how they work and what they do.
I hope you enjoyed this selection of moments from the Season 9 Bonus Aftershow.
The Bonus Show.
If you love REPOD and you're looking to hear the rest of these shows, you can access our library of over 100 bonus episodes by becoming a patron today at patreon.com/roomescapeartist. We're hard at work on Season 10 of Reality Escape Pod, which will launch this fall, so stay tuned. We have got some incredible bucket list guests. And if you love playing games, solving puzzles, and learning some interesting trivia, you should check out my new show, PG's Playhouse, available wherever you get your podcasts. We put so much love and care into crafting our shows, and your support truly is what makes it all possible. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
It's the Bonus Show. Ba-na-na-now.